She stormed out of her porch like a storm chasing the horizon, eyes blazing with suspicion. Her platinum hair was pulled so tight into a bun, it looked like a warning signal. Clutching her clipboard with a grip that trembled with righteous fury, she wagged her finger as if accusing him of trespassing on sacred ground. "You don't belong here," she snapped, voice sharp enough to cut through the late afternoon air. The way she looked at him, like he was graffiti on a pristine white wall, made something inside him tighten. Not just irritation, but a strange, simmering anger that refused to show. He stood still, silent, eyes half-lidded in calm defiance. She hadn't recognized him yet, but she'd soon learn. This wasn't just some stranger wandering the neighborhood. No, he owned this block. Every inch, every roof, every tiny detail she pointed her finger at. Her words dripped with authority, but beneath that, he sensed something else. Control, power, a desperate need to dominate a space she believed was hers by right because she carried her clipboard like a scepter. "You can't just be wandering around," she continued, voice rising. "Lately, we've had suspicious activity. This isn't a place for people to just peek into houses." He blinked slowly, giving her a momentary benefit of doubt. Maybe she thought he was a contractor or a repairman. He gave a small, polite nod, smile faint but genuine. That only seemed to fuel her fire. "You're not authorized," she barked, pushing her point like a drill. "This neighborhood's private. We don't need strangers wandering around, especially not people like you." "Inspecting gutters," he interrupted softly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Before winter. I work with the property management. Just checking on." Unit 12B, that made her pause, her eyes narrowing like a hawk's, but her pride was too wound up. She wasn't about to back down. She pulled out her phone, threatening to call the cops. He didn't move. He simply stepped back, shoulders relaxed, voice steady. "Go ahead. I'm with the management. I have the deeds, the LLC paperwork. I can show you if you want." Her face twisted into a sneer. "I don't care who you say you are. You people just think you can show up here like you own the place." He kept his silence, watching her, feeling the familiar burn of frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. She was wrong. She didn't own this neighborhood. She merely rented the illusion of control, and he was here to remind her of that. Her phone pressed to her ear. She threatened again. "I'm calling the cops." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. Inside, he was already calculating. This was the moment. She'd thrown the first stone, and now it was about to come back. As the sirens echoed faintly in the distance, he took one step back and raised his hands, palms open, a silent signal of surrender. "Take your time. I'll be here, checking the gutters, making sure everything's in order." Her gaze flicked between him and the phone, her finger poised over the screen, but her bravado was a fragile mask. He could see it cracking just beneath the surface. She was trying to impose her will, but deep down, she knew she wasn't in control. And in that moment, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile curled on his lips. Because some lessons aren't learned with words, they're earned the hard way. "Would you like me to continue with the next chapter, building on this tense beginning?" "Of course. Here's the second chapter, beginning right from where the first left off, diving straight into the action using simple yet powerful language, with suspense, dialogues, twists, and a strong tone. He watched her clutch her phone, her fingers trembling, eyes darting from him to the flashing sirens approaching in the distance. The moment felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Her bravado was unraveling fast. She was used to throwing her weight around, but now she was the one cornered. "Go." "Ahead," he said softly, voice steady. "Call the cops. I'll be here when they arrive, just doing my job." Her jaw clenched, but her fingers hesitated. Something in his tone, calm, unshakable, made her second-guess her usual threats. She looked at the police lights flickering. Closer, then back at him, eyes narrowing with a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. "Fine," she hissed, voice trembling just enough to betray her. "But this isn't over. I'll report you for harassment. I'll make sure—" He cut her off with a slow shake of his head. "You can try, but I've got the deeds, the paperwork. You're the one trespassing on my property right now." Her breath hitched. The sirens blared louder. the red and blue lights bouncing against her porch. For a second, she looked like she might scream, but then her eyes flicked to the police approaching, and she realized she'd lost her grip on the illusion of power. The first officer stepped out, calm and professional. He looked at her, then at him, then back at the flashing lights. "What's the issue here?" She opened her mouth to speak, but he beat her to it. "Ma'am, we got a call about suspicious activity. Who is this?" He kept his tone even, steady. She fumbled, trying to form words, but her voice cracked. He's trespassing. He's not supposed to be here." The officer's eyes flicked to him, then to the paperwork. "Sir, can you explain what you're doing here?" "I'm inspecting the property," he said simply. "Just checking gutters before winter. I work with the management company, the—" Cop nodded, eyes sharp. "And you have the proper authorization?" He nodded, pulling out a small folder from his pocket. "Here's the documentation, deeds, permits, everything." The officer glanced at the papers, then at the woman, whose face was draining of color. "Ma'am, do you have any proof this man is doing anything wrong?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked furious, but her voice was now a whisper. I thought he was suspicious. He's just wandering around." "Wandering?" the officer echoed, voice steady. "Ma'am, that's not a crime, but trespassing is. Now, unless you have more to add, I suggest you step back." She looked like she wanted to argue, but the moment she saw the police officers stand firm, her shoulders sagged, her lips pressed into a tight line, and she finally stepped back, hands trembling as she lowered her phone. The officers exchanged a glance, then one nodded toward him. "You're clear. We'll make a note of this, but next time call the management if you have concerns. Trespassing isn't a crime unless someone is unlawfully on the property long enough to be considered a threat." She didn't reply. She just stared, eyes burning with a mixture of rage and humiliation, her fingers still clutching her clipboard like a weapon she'd lost. The police turned away, lights fading into the night. As the squad car disappeared around the corner, he finally allowed himself a slow breath. The tension eased, but the game was far from over. She was still there, glaring at him, her fists clenched. But now her facade was cracking. She no longer looked like she owned the street. She looked like someone who'd just realized she'd been played, and he knew deep down that the real fight was only just beginning. "Would you like me to continue with the next part?" "Certainly. Here's the third and final chapter, starting immediately from where the last left off, packed with action, suspense, dialogues, twists, and a powerful, unforgettable ending." She stared as he turned away, the police car's lights flickering in her eyes like a taunt. For a moment she stood frozen, her mind racing for a comeback, a way to salvage her diminishing control, but the words caught in her throat. She wasn't used to being silenced, especially not like this. Then, her phone buzzed violently in her hand. She looked down, an unknown number. Before she could answer, a message popped up on her screen. "You're finished." No signature, no context, just those 3 words, as cold and certain as a verdict. Her breath quickened. Her pride couldn't let her back down, but her hands trembled. She fumbled to reply, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, her eyes darted around the quiet street, the neighbors peering from behind curtains, knowing something had shifted but unsure exactly what. He watched her from the shadows, silent. He could see her unraveling, piece by piece. She had fought so hard to be the queen of this small kingdom, but now her crown was slipping. Her own words, her own actions, the evidence stacking against her like a wall she couldn't climb. Suddenly her voice cracked, breaking the silence. You think you've won," she spat, voice trembling with desperation. "This isn't over. He stepped forward, voice calm but unwavering. "It's over. For you, it's done." He pulled out a thick folder, thick with documents, photos, and recordings. "You thought you could control everyone, that you owned this street, but all you ever owned was fear. And now even that's gone." Her eyes widened as he held up the folder. "See, I've been watching, I've been listening. Every lie, every manipulation, every act of sabotage. You thought you were invisible, but I had eyes everywhere." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "The police? They're just the beginning." Her face contorted in fury. "You can't—" "I already did," he interrupted. "You see, I bought this place. Every unit, every corner, mine. I owned the deed long before you ever thought to step out of your porch. Her mouth opened, then closed. The realization hit her like a punch. She'd been played. All her threats, her manipulations, they were nothing against the truth. He took a step closer, voice dropping to a whisper. You tried to tell the world you owned this neighborhood, but I own the truth, and now everyone will know. Your lies, your schemes, they're exposed. In that instant, her phone buzzed again. She looked down, another message, this time from the neighborhood app. A video was attached. She watched, mouth dropping open, as her own face appeared on the screen. Her shouting, her threatening, her sneering at neighbors. Her own words, her own actions, broadcast for all to see. A collective gasp rose from the crowd gathered behind curtains, neighbors finally seeing the real her. She backed away, voice hoarse. This isn't fair. You can't do this. Smiled, cold and triumphant. Fair? No, this is justice. You tried to control a community that wasn't yours to own. You bullied, you lied, you stole from your own neighbors. And now you're going to leave. Permanently. She lunged forward, but the police officer from earlier appeared, stepping between them. Ma'am, your time's up. You've been served eviction notices, and your lease is null. You're leaving tonight. Her eyes filled with tears, but she fought to hold her composure. I'll fight this. You'll see. But her voice was drowned out by the rising chorus of neighbors, voices of relief, voices of hope, voices finally free from her shadow. He looked around, then turned to the crowd. It's over. The real owners are here, us. We built this community with our hands, our trust, our voices. No more fear, no more control. He took a deep breath, voice steady and powerful. This isn't just about a woman losing her grip. It's about reclaiming what's ours. Our home, our neighborhood, our future. And I promise you, from this moment on, it will be built on honesty, respect, and unity. As the eviction papers were handed out and her belongings packed into a moving truck, she finally broke down, tears streaming down her face. Not from anger, but from the realization that her reign was finally over. Her illusion of power shattered by the truth she had tried to hide. When the last box was loaded, she drove away, silent, defeated, and completely alone. And as the community gathered in the street, a new chapter began, not ruled by fear, not dictated by one, but written together by everyone willing to stand for what was right. This street, once a battleground, was finally free, and everyone knew the real power had never been in the woman's clipboard. It had always been in their hands, and they would never give it back.